So already we had this immigration. South Africans were immigrating, moving without passports, without borders,
Oh
through these
Lord.
countries.
Really,
And what
bro?
happened is that because of them staying in our countries,
He's just lying, bro.
immediately
Through
when
his
we got
teeth.
independence,
South Africa cannot be used, like it was used in the 1800s. South Africa must take care of its own, like Zimbabwe took care of its own. When Robert Mugabe came in, he says, no, South Africans must worry about their struggle. Lesotho did the same when Labua Jonathan was even taken out of power by Lechanya.
Rutendo, your thoughts on the issue of immigration in South Africa as a general?
okay, that's a good question. For me, the issue of immigration in Africa is where the story starts. A lot of times when the conversation takes place, it's like South Africa is the first place where immigration started taking place. But immigration started taking place the moment Africa started receiving independence. So you've got people like Ezekiel Mpahlele, they left here. You've got the lady that used to be the ex-girlfriend of Nkrumah. He was cheating with her. She was a South African colored lady. And they all left here to go to Ghana because there was no freedom in South Africa. Ezekiel went to be an author and went to really home in his art there. Miriam Makeba left, people like Yuma Sekela left. They emigrated into Africa, and then sometimes they would also go to the West. And during the time that we got our independence, we had a lot of South Africans who came into Zimbabwe without papers. And the reason they did it is for the same reason why Miriam Makeba left and got passports in places like Guinea, is that Africa had this OAU that says Africa is for all Africans on a pan-African perspective. So South Africans started coming into Zimbabwe. That's why you had Bob Ladies in Zimande, people like Thabo Mbeki, people like Moleketi Mbeki, people
Bro,
like
this guy just knows how to fabricate
Derek
history, man.
Ryanacom. Even white people came and
He's
were
just
living in
making
Zimbabwe
some
for
things
instance.
up, bro.
Others were in Mozambique, others were in Zambia. People like Joe Mudise were between Zimbabwe and Angola, and sometimes he would also be found in Mozambique because he was coordinating the camps. So we saw South Africans coming into our countries. And contrary to what many people believe, they were not staying in camps. That's why Joe Gabi died in Avondale, a suburb. He was killed there.
Bro,
He was
it's
a
only a
major
few who are
member of
living in
ANC in the UK.
suburbs. But he's just
He was
making
murdered
stuff
in a
up.
suburb because that's where they were living. And
What?
because of them coming into our country,
Bro, I swear to God, this guy is just lying. He's making things up. In the suburbs, it was only a few of black people who went to exile from South Africa, who were living in suburbs. Majority of them were living in camps, man. But I think that's one of the things Mr. Ike is going to raise in this video.
passports, Zimbabwe took a policy to say we will give them passports. And that's why you see that when we had the Wanki campaign with Bokrisani, together with the detachment, their detachment was actually called the Lutuli detachment, that went into Rhodesia then, trying to create a logistics line that will eventually create bases inside South Africa and some in Rhodesia so that they can supply that line to start organizing an armed struggle in South Africa. When they fought this war, they eventually ran out of food because for 3 months they were fighting and running from the Rhodesians and the British South Africa Company. And when they eventually ran out of food, they ran into Botswana. And Masire arrested, Kama arrested them in Botswana for being illegal immigrants and for having unlicensed firearm because he was pressured by the Rhodesians, the South Africans, and the British. And when he did that, the OAU sent 5 members of a task team into Botswana to go and speak with the prisoners. Well, Chris and they were given 6 years. Some of them were given 9 years for being illegal immigrants. And the OAU said, no. Since when are Africans illegal immigrants in Africa? And he said, hey, I'm under pressure from the British. I'm under pressure from the South Africans. I don't have an army. These guys can invade me. And they said, no, you have to get these people out of prison. So they were arrested in December 1967. And by March 1968, they were released. Now, you need to see the parallel of this is also happening in South Africa today. After South Africans were arrested in Botswana, which was trying to enforce these colonial borders, and the OAU said no. They were then deported back to Zambia. So already we had this immigration. South Africans were immigrating, moving, without passports, without borders,
Oh,
through
Lord.
these countries.
Really,
And
bro?
what happened is that because of them staying in our countries,
He's just lying.
immediately
bro,
when
through
we got
his teeth.
independence, in Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Angola, the apartheid government immediately went to invade.
Well, he's not particularly lying. He's squeezing and bending the truth to fit his narrative. Some of these things did happen, and he's just talking about a lot of things at once. So it is just so difficult to address all of them. But in particular, the issue of that our politicians left South Africa mostly. In particular, the ANC politicians left South Africa, went into exile, to try to mobilize the international community against the apartheid government. It was not majority of the people who were in South Africa who left South Africa and went to African countries and started living there and started, committing crime in those countries. It is not the same. He's just bending the truth to fit his narrative, man. But I think Mr. Ike is gonna, put him in class and spank him a little bit on some of this misinformation he's just spreading over here. He's just yapping a lot and just lying a lot.
And attack those countries for harboring MK and the ANC. And these countries, instead of refusing to say, now that we're getting attacked, we've just started enjoying our independence. We haven't had the time to enjoy our independence that we fought for. These countries said, you know what? We're not going to tolerate what the apartheid government is saying. We're going to fight.
Your general thoughts on immigration and any responses to everything that Rutendo said to now?
It is amazing when people try to rewrite history. They try to revise the history, of which, it is something else. When he speaks of people going to exile, I can tell you by 94, we had about 25,000 applicators, about 45,000 MK cadres. That will give you the picture of how many people went to exile. It's not the whole country. half of the
Exactly, bro.
population who went to
Exactly.
exile.
That
That
is my main point. It's not a lot of South Africans who went to exile. It's only a few. You get what I'm saying?
They continued the struggle. They didn't do
Rutendo,
garden
bro.
work. They didn't work at fish and chips. The people whom Benson said they lived in suburb, there are very few, exceptional, few people in leadership where they lived in Zambia, like Abu Oliver Tambo lived in Zambia. But the rest of their comrades and cadres, they were living in Kuma camps in horrible conditions. Hence, they protested. Hence, the MK killed more of their own than the
Facts,
apartheid
bro.
government killed Umkhonto
Facts.
weSizwe, because they were protesting, saying, when are we going back to South Africa and fight? We cannot be living here, Goma camps. The situation is horrible. That's why I think in Tanzania, if I'm confusing in Tanzania and Uganda, they killed 17 PAC of members because they were saying, we cannot live here, under these circumstances. They were protesting. They were shot. That's why Kebi Mapaswe was shot. He was running away from those horrible conditions. So when Benson said that we went that side,
Rutendo
we
is
were
on
not
his
in
phone. Ladies and gentlemen, Rutendo is on Google. Did you see that? Bro, look at this, man. This man is on Google. He's in a debate. He's on Google. He's trying to search things as this man is talking. Who debates like this? Who has a conversation like this, ladies and gentlemen?
We went that side. We are not in that number. And I can tell you, the question of immigration in South Africa, it starts as early as about 1800, when they discovered gold, when they took our land. These multinationals, Hispanabo, Dutch East India companies, and all the companies that came after them. So the Zulus in KZN would not work the farms that they used to own. That's why they brought in the Indians. People in the Northwest, they could not work the mines that they used to own. They said, no, we're not working, because this used to be my mine. How dare, you enslave me now as an employee? Guess who they brought in? They brought in foreigners from Botswana land, from Rhodesia, and that agreement with those governments, it continued even after they had a liberation. That's why you'll find a president like Mugabe. He said he won't be a frontline state. Actually, he hated the ANC with passion. He even fought Joshua Nkomo, saying that they must get rid of the MK military soldiers. So Puza did the same in 1982, because they were looking after their interest. Same as the people of Lesotho in 1985. They were looking after their interest. They said, no, South Africans must go. That's why people like Chris Hani, they were betrayed. Chris Hani was arrested in Botswana because Botswana, post-liberation, they were looking after their own interests because, of course, they depended with South Africa on other things because they are a landlocked country. They needed, to go to the harbor and all that. But they looked after themselves. They put themselves first. Zambia did the same. Zimbabwe did the same. And South Africa today is saying, you know what? Guys, we've been supportive. We've accommodated you since the 1800s. And mind you, South Africans, they never said, people from Zimbabwe, Lesotho, they are traitors, even though they were traitors. Because if I'm on strike and I refuse to work, you bring in replacement labor to work.
Yeah.
What is that? But we accommodated that, That's why I'm going to tell you it was bad. Those who wanted, to stay behind post their liberation, they stayed. Those who wanted to marry our sisters, they married our sisters. But we're saying post 1994, that arrangement cannot happen, where we must carry the burden of other countries. Zimbabwe must take care of its own. Yes, we can support them, when it comes to trade, certain things like about Jubilee 2000, I think it was about Njongonkulu Ndungwana, they were going to United Nations saying, cancel the debt, don't impose sanctions. Even some, about, I think there was movements, as far as they used to go there, go to United Nations and say, the case of Zimbabwe is a special case, it cannot be punished. So South Africa has done a lot. And we cannot be expected, to carry another country where somebody, if he's pregnant, he must jump the border, come here. And it's very funny when he says they
Which is unfair,
under
really,
sanctions.
on
But
South Africans.
the top ZANU leaders, even Mugabe, when he needed medical attention, he went to these European countries until they blocked him. Then he started to go to China. Even Rutendo is here most of the time, while the majority of the people in Zimbabwe, they suffer. They took majority of the land in Zimbabwe. Why are they not working the land?
Why?
They expel the very same white that they are following here, the very same white that they want to work from, instead of working the land, because you'll think that after taking the land, the most natural progression or natural thing to do is to work on the land, farm the land. They've got gold, they've got diamonds, they've got platinum.
He's telling the truth, man. He's telling the truth, ladies and gentlemen.
In fact, they are pushing this cornism, pushing, their comrades, of ZANU-PF, into strategic positions. So South Africa cannot be used, like it was used in the 1800s. South Africa must take care of its own, like Zimbabwe took care of its own. When Robert Mugabe came in, he says, no, South Africans must worry about their struggle. Lesotho did the same when Labua, Jonathan, was even taken out of power by Lechanya. I think that, I'll end there for now.
Thank you, Art.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is a very long interview. You can check it out on Pennywell's podcast. I'm going to leave the link below. If you liked this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and open your notifications so that you are notified every time that we upload. And please do let us know who had a superior argument on the issue of illegal immigration in South Africa. Was it Rutendo Matinyarare or was it Ike Khumalo? Ladies and gentlemen, in my view, because I'm a South African, I'm a patriot, I love my country, and I think people who come here illegally, are just sabotaging and destroying our country. I'm going with the argument of Mr. Ike Khumalo. They are involved in identity theft. There's a lot of South Africans who go around looking for IDs and they cannot be able to access them, and they are not able to access the opportunities provided by their land of birth, which is South Africa. Those opportunities are given to illegal immigrants because they buy documents. And there's our sisters out here who are, being raped. Some of them, they are taking on these human trafficking things that these illegal immigrants are involved in. We see our communities dying because of drugs. So if you're against all of that, ladies and gentlemen, hit the subscribe button and let us build a community. With that, your boy is outta here, man.